Hello, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. Some community members are urging officials to slow down on a planned quantum computing development on the southeast side. Former Bulls star Joakim on how a local basketball league is working to reduce violence.
A baby or a fool can see that this was murder.
And a look back at the assassination of Black Panther Party members Fred Hampton and Mark Clark 55 years later. And now to some of today's top stories. Court records obtained by WTTW News show city attorneys have agreed to settle the lawsuit filed by the family of Dexter Reed. Reed was shot and killed by police officers during a traffic stop in March of this year. 4 officers fired 96 shots in 41 seconds, striking him 13 times. A preliminary investigation from the Civilian Office of Police Accountability says Reed fired first, wounding an officer. Court documents don't show the potential settlement amount, but the joint filing from the city and an attorney for Reed's mother shows City Council must approve the settlement by February 10th. That indicates the amount is more than $100,000. There's more of this story on our website. Minimum wage workers in Cook County are getting a raise with the new year. The County Commission on Human Rights is reminding employers that the new wage kicks in January 1st. For non-tipped employees, the base pay goes up to $15 an hour and $9 an hour for tipped employees. This applies to workers over the age of 18 who work at least 2 hours in any 2-week period, and workplaces with 4 or more employees, as well as domestic workers. The Chicago Police Department is working with community organizers to provide emergency assistance to people impacted by gun violence, especially those affected by a mass shooting in the Gage Park neighborhood yesterday that killed 3 people and wounded 5 others.
Tomorrow is not the only day that you can come and get help if you've been a victim of violent crimes here in the city. Also, we're here to help with creating safe spaces and helping people get to resources and helping people find alternative lifestyles. But our heart goes out to those victims.
CPD says it's hosting an emergency assistance center tomorrow from 3:30 to 7 at Monarchus Academy. It is right around the corner from where that shooting took place in Gage Park. It's intended to provide any kind of support to residents, no matter when or where they were affected by violence, at no cost. Coming up, a major quantum computing development on the southeast side, why some neighbors are raising concerns. We hear from the company and residents up next.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
Some South Chicago residents are raising concerns over the development of a new quantum computing campus. The plan is to transform the former U.S. Steel Southworks site into the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park. Officials are calling the campus history-altering and hope the development and their partnership with California-based company PsiQuantum makes Illinois a global quantum leader. But some neighbors want the process to slow down, raising environmental and displacement concerns. Joining us now are Amalia Nieto Gomez, Executive Director of Alliance of the Southeast, Harley Johnson, CEO and Director of Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park, and on Zoom, Ann Holcomb, a community resident and co-founder of Environment, Transportation, Health, and Open Space of South Shore, also known as Ethos, and 10th Ward Alderman Peter Chico. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Harley Johnson, let's start with you. Please break it down for us, for the non-science folks. What is quantum computing? Why is it important?
Sure. Well, thank you for having us this evening. So a quantum computer is a new kind of computer, essentially a supercomputer that uses the laws of physics and the laws of quantum mechanics to do the calculations differently. It'll We believe it will transform a lot of areas of industry, a lot of areas of our society as it replaces classical computing and takes over and does these calculations faster.
And for understanding, quantum computing or technology refers to, what is it, the physics of subatomic particles? Or
Right. So quantum computers...
That's the extent of my knowledge.
That's right. Quantum computers operate by controlling states of atoms or states, particles of light.
Okay. Why is Illinois the prime location for this park to develop, for this project to go on?
Right. Well, so I'm from the University of Illinois, and I'm a scientist and engineer. I've worked on quantum for a long time. The state of Illinois has at least more than its share of the national resources in quantum information science. So we have 4 of the 10 major research centers in the country are located here in Illinois. We have the national labs, Argonne National Lab and Fermi National Lab, University of Chicago, Northwestern University, University of Illinois, where I am. And that gives us a head start because we have the basic science in place.
Amalia Nieto-Gomez, why is Alliance of the Southeast asking for this process to be slowed down?
Well, we feel that the process is being rushed through. This announcement was just made in July, and there are a lot of questions that the community still has, whether that be questions about the environment and what the environmental impacts are going to be, what is going to happen with jobs pipeline, education pipeline, and how residents who have been in the community for 2-3 generations are not going to be displaced by this development. So there's a lot of questions that we have. There's a lot of concerns that we have. And then we also want to make sure that there are defined community benefits for the community to make sure that this truly benefits the community, because if those benefits aren't defined, then this is another round of empty promises. We've had 2 other developments before this.
Yeah.
So.
What particular community benefits are you advocating for?
So we would like to see a jobs pipeline, like a defined jobs pipeline, an education pipeline that starts at the elementary school level and carries on into high school, and that creates job pipelines for local residents. And we would like to make sure that longtime residents who have built the community are not displaced by this development, whether that be from rising property taxes, rising rents, even rising power utility bills, because we just read that there are our utility bills are going to be rising because of data centers, and the quantum development is going to take on a lot more of the electrical grid. So how are we going to keep people housed that are currently in the community?
Ann Holcomb, what are your environmental remediation concerns?
So we've seen a lot of very glossy presentations. I was at the 5-hour Planning Commission meeting last week, and what those pretty pictures don't show is what is in the ground. And what is in the ground is a toxic brownfield. And so we have a lot of concerns about the construction process and how that's going to affect residents, because when you start digging in a toxic piece of land, that stuff becomes particulate matter. It goes airborne and people can breathe it. It can go into the aquifers that the water table that feeds Lake Michigan, and then we can drink it. And we are very afraid of actually being poisoned. And if that happens, we're not going to know for 10, 15 years when we start getting cancers and we start getting these other things that could happen because we're breathing and drinking that toxic brownfield. The IEPA keeps virtually waiving this no further remediation necessary letter in our faces. It's brought up at every single meeting. And I actually have documentation dated November 8th, 2004, that was a letter that was written to a previous proposed developer, McCaffrey was his last name. And it was written by the then chief of Bureau of Land. His name was William Childs. And he basically said that they only did 1 sample per 2 acres instead of the standard 2 samples per half acre to see what was in that brownfield and what remediation would be needed. And
so it sounds like you've got some concerns then that more of that is necessary, and that the testing has not gotten as in-depth as it should be. I want to bring Alderman Chico in here. Sorry, Ann, I will come back to you though. Alderman, why are you in favor of this project?
Well, I think it represents an opportunity for the 10th Ward and the South Chicago community U.S. Steel closed its doors nearly 30 years ago, and since then we've had 450 acres of undeveloped lakefront property. When I knock on doors and I talk to folks in the South Chicago community and in the 10th Ward in general, they know that that piece of property could be catalytic to seeing further investment in the South Chicago neighborhood. And they're excited. It's time for our community to be paid attention to. It's time for the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois to pay attention to the South Chicago community, and that time has come.
Alderman, is there a plan to be sure that residents are included in the future of the campus and the impact that it has on their community and their neighborhood?
Absolutely. I think what I'm most excited about since the announcement in July, and the vision I kind of had, was creating a pipeline from our schools to the IQMP. About a month ago, we gathered around 25 principals from the 7th and 10th wards. We had Harley there from U of I, Cy Quantum there, co-founder, the Quantum Exchange, and we started that conversation. We started that dialogue about leveraging what's going on in the IQMP into our schools. The principals are very excited, and we left that meeting with just a sense of urgency and excitement for our kids.
Harley, the Wall Street Journal says, Chicago will be the Silicon Valley of quantum. Tell us a little bit about some of the different components that will be incorporated into this park. What does it need?
Sure. We're very excited about it, and we think there is a possibility that this becomes a kind of Silicon Valley for quantum. There's going to be a hardware component where companies come and build computing prototypes, so the early versions of the quantum computers. There'll be a software side where companies come and, along with university researchers, work on software that will be used to run the computers. And so that creates really a full spectrum, all the way from kind of where we are today with the early prototypes to really what we think will be serving end users, the companies and the organizations around Illinois and around the country that can use these devices.
Of course, there's, we've heard about the cryogenics, the stuff that's necessary to keep the computers cold.
Right. So one of the principles that many quantum computers operate on is they have to run at very low temperatures because they're very sensitive and they need to be kept cold. So at the center of the park will be a really industrial scale cryogenics plant, cryogenics facility that's made to cool the computers down to very low temperatures.
Amalia, do you see any positives to a campus like this coming to the neighborhood?
Well, I think the positives will be measured whether or not, able to fill the promises that have been made. And so I think what we're saying is to slow it down, to do this right and get the details ironed out. So that's what we're saying. And even just to slow it down so that the environmental review is done, so that we know what is in the ground, because we know there's toxins and we know that there's leaching happening, both from steel workers that have worked there, and we know this on personal level that this happened, and some of the stuff isn't in the paperwork. We would like to slow down until there are community conversations, actual conversations about what the community's priorities are for the development. So I think it has a lot of potential, but there are also a lot of concerns.
Alderman Chico, we've got just about 30 seconds left. The site has been earmarked for development several times by different companies. Why are you confident that this one will go through? Why is this one different? Briefly.
Because we have the full force of government behind it. Everybody from the governor's office to the mayor's office, we are fully behind it. Unlike the other projects, we have the full force of government.
Okay. All right. That's where we'll have to leave it. I know that there's a lot of questions and thoughts among the folks at this table and in front of us, but I want to thank all of you for joining us. Harley Johnson, Amalia Nieto-Gomez, Ann Holcomb, and Alderman Peter Chico. Thank you. Up next, how a baseball league is working to reduce violence. Basketball league. Basketball. Chicago's violent crime numbers have dipped in the past 5 years, but there's still a lot of work to do when it comes to gun-related incidents. Last month, police officers recovered 835 firearms, and since the beginning of this year, more than 11,700 firearms. To help combat this issue, a team of violence interrupters are unifying young people through their love of basketball. Joining us now are the co-founders of the One City Basketball League, Cobe Williams, national violence interrupter and author of the book Interrupting Violence, One Man's Journey to Heal the Street and Redeem Himself. And on Zoom, we have former Chicago Bulls star and co-founder of the Noah's Ark Foundation, Joakim. Noah, thanks to you both for joining us. It's good to see you. Question for the both of you, kind of. You've been working together for over a decade. This is a relationship that started on Twitter. Cobe, tell me how your partnership began.
I mean, I met Joakim, like you say, over a decade ago on Twitter. He saw a documentary I was featuring called Interrupt Us. He sent a tweet, this is a must-see documentary, and I tweeted back to him, say, man, thank you for watching my movie, and we built from right there. You know, he said, Cobe, if anything I could do to help you, let me know. So a week later, I met him at PF Change, and we just started brainstorming how he could get involved in different things like that. And once we started brainstorming, he said, all right, I'm gonna come out to the community. I want to meet some of the guys and women in the community. I started bringing them out to the community. Sometimes he'll meet me out there by himself. Then we started taking the youth to the Berto Center where Michael Jordan played at. You know, that's the Bulls practice center facility. And we started going out there and bringing kids, just getting to know them, and just been building ever since.
And the rest is history. I know that Joakim, obviously he wrote the foreword to your book. Joakim, Noah, what was it about, obviously, the movie and then, you know, the work that Cobe Williams and, you know, his team members do that made you want to get involved?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Very excited about our One City finals that are starting on Saturday, but Cobe's just a very special guy, somebody that I met over a decade ago, and just his work is so real, and somebody that I just started working with very organically. And now we have our basketball league on the south side of Chicago working with 28 violence prevention groups. We have some groups on the west side as well. So we have our finals coming up this weekend, and we're just really excited.
Awesome. Cobe, you work as a violence interrupter, and of course you have a personal connection to this work. Tell us about that.
I mean, you know, I started off doing a violence interrupter. My job was every day to mediate conflicts that lead to violence, to stop the shooting and killing and focus on changing mindsets and behavior, and really just meeting the youth by themselves. I was part of the problem, now I'm part of the solution. So I just want to get back because I know, you know, I want the youth to know they're not alone. I understand them. I feel them. You know, I grew up like that.
You kind of talk about that.
Yes, I talk about a lot about in my book, Interrupting Violence. I just want everybody to know, you know, like I said, ain't how you start, it's how you finish. And it's still light on the other end. And that's important for people to know because people be so quick to judge each other and judge people and look down on them. And one more thing I want to say about Joakim Noah. When I first met him from the beginning, he told me, said this, when basketball is over with, I'm going to be working with you. I'm going to be doing this type of work with you. So I want to thank that brother for keeping his word on that.
Of course, he did. So as we mentioned this week, Chicago Police Department, they shared some monthly crime stats for November, showing a continued decline in shootings, murders, several other crimes. But when you look at numbers like that from the CPD, what do you think? What do you attribute that to?
Man, I feel, man, it's great anytime you see shooting and killings go down in these cities, definitely in Chicago. So it's a plus, you know, to see violence go down. And that's contribute to what everybody's doing to stop this. Not one organization, one person, nobody can stop all this senseless shooting. So, you know, we got to continue to do our part and everybody else got to do their part. But when, you know, when everybody doing something, you see numbers go down like this. So it's contributed to a lot of violence prevention groups, even One City, because we keeping these guys off the street sometimes, and they coming out playing basketball and they building relationships with each other and different things like that.
Joakim, through the One City Basketball League, you use basketball as a means, of course, to help guide young men to learn lifelong skills. How can, you know, sports be a unifier? What are the life lessons they can get from sports?
No, sports is the ultimate unifier, and we're able to hook the kids in through the basketball. But obviously, this league is about much more than playing basketball. This is about uniting the kids, bringing them together, being able to speak to them the right way, and just have a moment where we can enjoy the competition of basketball, unifying the city, all the different violence prevention groups that are playing in our league. But just like I said, this is so much bigger than just winning and losing a game. This is about bringing people together.
And of course, you're also, you're giving young black men and boys the opportunity to have, difficult conversations about their lives and their future. How do you sort of get to these young men? How do you get to these guys who've, historically they haven't maybe felt empowered to open up and share their stories and talk about their feelings? Joakim, I'll come to you first on that one.
I think this is about youth empowerment. You know, when you're able to bring all the people together, have real conversations, organic conversations. I think we've been doing this for a while now, so I think that people understand that this program is necessary, and I think it's a little bit different. But when you're able to walk into the gym and have those moments and be able to have those conversations with the guys, I think it's something that I'm very proud of. And just like Cobe said, I knew that when I was done playing basketball, I would have an opportunity to get into this field with my brother Cobe that I really respect. And I'm really proud of just the consistency and the time and the effort that goes into this problem that we have in Chicago.
Cobe, there's a lot of misconceptions about, how and why violence persists in a city like Chicago. What falsehoods do you want to dispel?
I mean, violence, growing up, you see violence every day. Sometimes you see it in your household, you see it in the community and all that. So many of us been exposed to violence as kids. So once we've been exposed to it, we thought that's the only way you should handle your responsibilities. When I say your responsibility, I mean by if somebody do something to you, your parents always taught you to hit them back. Don't let nobody do A, B, C, and D to you. So we thinking that's embedded in us to react a certain type of way. But now what we doing is helping them change their mindset and they thinking, showing them just because you have a disagreement, you ain't got to lead to violence.
All right, that is a good place to leave it. Cobe Williams, Joakim Noah, thanks to you both for joining us. And we're back with more in just a moment, but first, a look at the weather. "55 years ago today, 2 Black Panther members were shot and killed in a police raid. 21-year-old leader of the Chicago Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, was fatally shot, as was 22-year-old member Mark Clark, while several others were injured. Then Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan held a news conference claiming his officers were, quote, surprise attacked by the Panthers. But documents later revealed the raid was part of a secret program by the FBI to neutralize the Black Panther Party. In 2005, this episode of Chicago Stories explored the contradictory accounts following the raid. Here's some of that story with Rich Samuels.
Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan, a few hours later, presented the official account of the pre-dawn raid.
As soon as Sergeant Daniel Groth and officers James Davis, who were leading our men, announced their office, occupants of the apartment attacked them with shotgun fire. The officers immediately took cover. The occupants continued firing at our policemen from several rooms within the apartment. Thereafter, 3 times, Sergeant Groth ordered all his men to cease firing and told the occupants to come out with their hands up. Each time, one of the occupants replied, "Shoot it out," and continued firing at the police officers.
Some journalists took the Hanrahan account as the last word. But WMAQ-TV on its new newscast that day added a new dimension to the story. Producer Phil Walters invited 2 Black Panthers to Channel 5's Merchandise Mart studios to be interviewed live on the midday news.
The man murdered Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was laying in his bed. We'll prove it. We'll prove it to the world that Fred Hampton was murdered. There were no gunshot wounds. There was no gunshot bullet holes outside of the apartment. if there was a gunfire, the pigs had to fire in the apartment. So and there are no holes outside the doors. They say they kicked down the doors. The locks are still intact on the doors. We approved it. The cameras were over there today. They took pictures of it. We approved that these pigs murdered Fred Hampton while he was asleep. They attempted to wipe out the Black Panther Party, and after if they succeed in this, if Black people allow them to succeed in this, then they're going to move on Black people in general, just like Hitler did in Germany.
After years of cover-ups and litigation, the government agreed to a settlement in 1982, paying $1.85 million to Hampton and Clark's families and the other survivors of the 1969 raid. But no one was ever convicted. And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Be sure to sign up for our free email newsletter, The Daily Chicagoan, at WTTW.com/newsletter. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and a special time at 11 p.m. We dive into reports that show a mishandling of asylum seekers' private information by the company hired to oversee migrant shelters. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, wishing all a happy and healthy holiday season.